It depends if we can
on
keep several Democrats in line. Josh
on the
Gottheimer,
war with Iran.
Congressman Markowitz,
Oh, let me cut
folks
some
who
more
have
lights
been
on.
on
Hold
the
on.
fence. But I believe that this is a disastrous vote for any Democrat to vote for Donald Trump's war in the Middle East. So I hope we will hold the line. And then, like I said, there are a few Republicans who share Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson and others, the Rand Paul's view, and we've got to make the case for them. It'll be a close vote. Right now, it's 40-60 to pass, but we've got a few days to work on it.
Some House Democrats, as you know, have actually already come out against this resolution in the aftermath of the strikes. Here's what Democratic Congressman, you just mentioned him, Doug Landsman, said: "I don't support the resolution, which would require us to completely abandon our allies. The strikes are an attempt to prevent further war, not start one." Does he have a point, Congressman?
Just look at it with common sense. I mean, even Lindsey Graham said we're at war. Of course we're at war with Iran. We killed their leader. We have over 100 of our fighter jets bombing them. The point of this resolution is to say we do not want another war in the Middle East, or at least Congress should opine on that, should vote on that. And if you're not voting for this war powers resolution, you basically have Lindsey Graham's view, which is that the president gets to decide wars. I admire this part about Lindsey Graham. He's at least intellectually consistent. He doesn't believe in the war powers. He believes the president has authority to go into war. He is chair-elect for the war in Iraq, for the war in Libya, for 20 years in Afghanistan, and he's basically, that's his viewpoint. So either you are on the side of no more Middle East wars, or you're on the side of Lindsey Graham. That's what this vote is about.
Congressman, what would a war powers resolution do at this point to limit the administration, given that they've already launched this military offensive?
Well, that's exactly when the war powers resolution is supposed to kick in. If the president launches an attack, the Congress can say, no, you need to stop unless you have Congress's authority. It actually should be an easy vote now. It would have been a harder vote if the president hadn't taken action, because people could say he's just bluffing, he's building up support so that we can get a deal. But now that he's taken action, this is exactly when you need the war powers resolution. If we pass it in the House and the Senate, it would be an enormous message to the president. And of course, if it passes and he signs it, it would restrict his action.
Let me talk to you about one of the big headlines before the strikes against Iran this week, the fallout over the Epstein files. As you well know, former President Bill Clinton testified before the House Oversight Committee behind closed doors, saying, quote, he had no idea of the crimes that Epstein was committing. Do you have any outstanding questions for President Bill Clinton about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, Congressman?
When the transcript comes out, I think people will see that he answered every question. I actually think they'll see that some of the Democrats asked him tougher questions than even the Republicans. And he sat there, he didn't take the fifth, he answered every question fully, and the American people will be able to decide on what they believe. The point, though, is that President Clinton has set a precedent, a new Clinton rule. That means that Donald Trump should do the same, answer the question. Howard Lutnick should do the same. I'm working with a Republican actually to subpoena Howard Lutnick next week, and I believe he will come before the committee. And every person who went to that island or who corresponded with Epstein about going to his mansion should be called under oath to tell us what they knew.
So you're going to subpoena Howard Lutnick. Do you plan to subpoena President Trump, and do you believe you have the votes to subpoena President Trump to testify before the committee?
We have the votes to subpoena Lutnick. I don't believe we have the votes right now to subpoena President Trump, because the Republicans control the House, and I don't think they would vote with us on that. But when Robert Garcia is chair of the Oversight Committee, we will have those votes. And the Clinton rule means that Donald Trump and his family members should testify. By the way, he should do it voluntarily. I mean, he should look at what President Clinton did. He answered every question. Why can't Donald Trump do the same? There's this question of these 3 FBI interviews. There's someone who made allegations against Donald Trump that she was sexually abused as a minor. I want to be very clear. There's no evidence whether that's true or not, but there were allegations made. One of those witness interviews was released. 3 of them are hidden by the Justice Department. Why are they hidden? When will they be released? These are the types of questions Donald Trump needs to answer.
All right, Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you very much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And when we come back, Richard Engel with a live report from the Middle East next.
Okay, let me turn this down and play something else. This is Savage Salves.
People have been talking about this for years. So I'm glad more people are waking up. But yeah, man, anytime this guy was more focused on a hip hop day instead of feeding people, giving people health care, that should have told you everything that you needed to know. And you even see here, what did I tell you? Even when it came to the War Powers resolution, Hakeem Jeffries, who held off on a War Powers resolution long enough for Trump to go start the war before it came to a vote, does not condemn Trump's attack in his initial response. The party leadership, as we reported last week, is eager to see Trump launch this war. Hakeem Jeffries knows how to play the game. And Hakeem Jeffries knows that there is a certain image he's supposed to present to his base, and then there's what happens behind closed doors. At the end of the day, you know, a lot of these people, they're just working for their donors. I don't know, it's kind of like people see them on these separate teams, and Hakeem Jeffries, you know, he talks a lot about MAGA and he criticizes MAGA, and you'll see this happen on the Republican side. They criticize the Democrats, right? But at the end of the day, it's like Michael Johnson, good grief, Michael Jordan, sorry. It's like Michael Jordan wearing a Bulls jersey on the court in front of the public, but behind the scenes, he puts on a Lakers jersey. Behind the scenes, all these people have the same agenda in common, and that is to do the bidding of their donors and to protect the status quo. That's what their donors want. That's why they don't want you to go too far in love, because that doesn't benefit corporations. That's how it works. So publicly, Hakeem Jeffries will pretend like, I'm outraged, oh my God, Trump is crazy, blah, blah, blah. But behind the scenes, they agree with what he is doing that protects the status quo. They nod their heads, him and Chuck Schumer, and that's how they're...
Back to Meet the Press.
Richard, you're at the site of an Iranian missile strike. We can see some of the damage behind you. Tell us what you're learning this morning.
So the attack took place here a short while ago. This was a single ballistic missile, according to an Israeli official, and at least 9 people were killed here. They are still looking through this site, trying to secure the area. There was so much damage. They do not know if the victims were men, women, or children. The bodies were that disfigured. This is just one of the ballistic missiles that managed to get through the Israeli and American air defense system. But that does not mean that this war is slowing down from Israel's perspective. In fact, the Israeli defense minister just announced a short while ago that Israel has achieved what it's describing as air superiority over Iran, meaning that Israeli jets, presumably American jets as well, can stay over Tehran, that they feel safe in the air and can conduct attacks at a time and place of their choosing. And mostly what Israel is firing on right now are Iranian missile systems and Iranian leaders. But specifically, they want to stop the incoming strikes so that there aren't more scenes like this. And according to Israeli officials, they have been able to kill about 40 senior Iranian leaders in addition to the supreme leader himself.
And Richard, tell us about the strike in Tel Aviv. You've been tracking that as well.
So this strike happened. It was a direct hit on a house just a few hours ago. The strike in Tel Aviv happened last night around 10 o'clock local time. It was very close to where we were at the time. We watched this incoming ballistic missile manage to get through the Israeli defensive network and slammed right into an apartment building. At least one woman was killed there. But when I spoke to people on the scene, like I'm speaking to people here, they still support this effort. They say that they want Israel and the United States to do more to stop Iran and topple the regime.
All right, Richard Engel, please stay safe. Thank you for your incredible reporting. We really appreciate it. When we come back, what will the Iran war mean for politics here at home? The panel is next.
And it appears again, this looks like Brett Ratner, who said he never went there, with no kids. The DOJ removed this picture, probably because of what I just told you. They're protecting Howard Lutnick. They're protecting Brett Ratner. There was no reason to remove this picture from the files. There are no girls in this picture, but they removed it. You will also see here something else about Howard Lutnick. You know, Howard, who claims so much that he just happened to not be in the towers on 9/11. I just happened to take my kid to school that day. Remember we talked about this? Okay. So, peep this, fam. Edie Lutnick, Howard Lutnick's sister, has direct ties to Ghislaine Maxwell. After Epstein was convicted of sex crimes, Ghislaine Maxwell started Tara Maher, and Edie happened to be a founding member and supporter of the organization. So now we see Howard Lutnick's sister also had a connection to them. Check this out.
This is Edie Lutnick, Howard Lutnick's sister. And what do you know? She has direct ties to Ghislaine Maxwell. In 2012, after Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of sex crimes, Ghislaine Maxwell started Terra Mar, a non-profit organization to help protect the high seas. What do you know? Good old Edie just happened to be a founding member and supporter of the organization. And this is years after Howard said that he had cut all ties with Jeffrey Epstein.
Years later, my friend. So do you see this? Still all in the family.
Edie and Howard are close. They're not some distant relatives. Edie Lutnick is a lawyer. She's also the co-founder and serves as the president of the Cantor Fitzgerald Relief Fund that was established shortly after 9/11 at Howard's request to support the families that passed from 9/11. And one of the craziest parts is that just like Howard Lutnick, she just happened to not be in the Twin Towers that day. Howard, his wife, asked him to pick up the kids from school, and in Edie's case, it happened because of a canceled appointment. This is
Okay, so let's just stop there for a second. What are the possibilities that Howard Lutnick and his sister just happened to have other things that would keep them out of the towers on that day? We also know that Ghislaine Maxwell, from the files, was asked to be a part of the 9/11 Shadow Commission. If you've been following me recently, you also know that Ghislaine Maxwell's sister created a company, software company called Chiliad, which was basically championed to challenge what happened with 9/11. Chiliad was connected with the FBI, with intelligence agencies. And so you mean to tell me it just happens to be a coincidence that Howard Lutnick and his sister just happened to not be there on that day?
Political columnist for Politico, Jonathan Martin. Jay Johnson, former Homeland Security Secretary under former President Obama, and Stephen Hayes, editor and CEO of The Dispatch. Welcome to all of you. Carol, let me start with you. This is the biggest foreign policy decision that President Trump has made in both administrations, quite frankly. You have new reporting about what brought him to this decision. What do you know?
Well, first we'll step back. There was months of deliberations, intelligence gathering, military planning, going through the different options, and testing diplomatic negotiations. There's questions about whether that was serious on either side. But after saying on Thursday, they just held a round of negotiations on Thursday, coming out of that there was positive, there were good vibes coming out of that. Now, administration officials are saying, hey, those talks actually were a disaster. And that confirmed for the president that it was time to take military action. The president's team are also saying that there was this imminent threat. They're saying that there were concerns that Iran would hit the U.S. first, or U.S. interests in the region first. And there's real pressure on the president, you heard that from Senator Kelly, to explain what he means by that. Because in the run-up to this, he did not lay out a case to the American people for war with Iran, what that would mean, what it could mean for Americans. The first time we heard the president say that U.S. troops could die as a result of this decision was when the bombs were falling. It was not even during the State of the Union, which he had addressed, which he had just given several days earlier. So there are real questions about the justification for this, how long it will go on, and what happens next.
Jay Mark, Carol lays out all of the critical questions, this idea about what exactly was the imminent threat. You heard me try to push Senator Graham on that. And what's the strategy moving forward? I'm not sure.
They don't have a strategy, and that's the problem.
Does he need to make his case, as Carol said? Does he need to go before the American people and explain exactly what the plan is here?
Well, the last time we had a major war in the Middle East, President Bush did that. There was a public campaign. There was obviously a vote in the Congress for authorization. There was none of that this time. And I think that's vital if this war does spiral. If you don't have the buy-in up front from the American people for the why, it creates profound political challenges down the road. If this becomes a protracted war, and of course that's the big if. A couple of things. First, there has been this long tension, Kristen, as you know, between the Hawks and the Doves within Donald Trump's orbit. Well, guess what? Lindsey Graham and the Hawks have won, and they won big. This has been the prize for years, taking down the Ayatollah. Secondly, it's important to remember what drives Donald Trump. He craves a big legacy. He wants to be a historic, consequential figure. He wanted to do that through the Nobel Committee. Didn't go so well. He thought he could end all these wars around the world and he'd be recognized. It didn't happen. So now he's taking the Hawks approach, going into Venezuela, going into Iran, and he's obviously looking for a legacy that way. The challenge is, this is very different from Venezuela. It's a much larger country, a more religious element, obviously, and you can't just install somebody from the old regime and say, do a deal on the oil and just move on. Or say, oh, you have a Nobel Peace Prize winner in the wings. We can have a free and fair election next month. This is a different country in a different region.
Yeah, Stephen, pick up on that point. And the fact that we heard from Senator Lindsey Graham, this isn't as much about regime change as it is about changing the threat, which was a new line on this.
Very interesting argument from Lindsey Graham, presumably was coordinated with the White House on this. And, I think this is part of the president's efforts to get away from this idea of regime change. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for President Trump to make a case for sort of the Venezuela model here, and there won't be regime change, but we're changing the nature of the threat. I think he's likely to have Republican support. When you look back at where we were a decade ago, when you had the Obama administration sending pallets of cash, you had John Kerry lobbying Western nations to do business with the leading state sponsor of terror, Republicans are thrilled that that's over. A lot of people are thrilled that that's over and that the Ayatollah is gone. Having said that, when you look at what President Trump said, the lack of case that was made, the lack of strategy that he's laid out, like he said in his Truth Social post, that he hopes that the IRGC, which is the terrorist arm of the Iranian regime, will, quote, peacefully merge with the Iranian people, suggests a level of naivete that should have people worried.
Secretary Johnson, the root of this question, was this legal weigh in on that argument that is now going to be raging on Capitol Hill?
Right. So I'll tell you how the state of the law is, not what it should be. What we did was an act of war. Plain and simple. I'm quite sure that Lindsey Graham and others would say if a foreign government launched airstrikes on our nation's capital and took out the U.S. government leadership, we'd say it was an act of war, without a doubt. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution assigns to Congress the authority to declare war. That basically is now a nullity. The War Powers Resolution is close to being a nullity. What's happened over multiple administrations is the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel, which is like the Supreme Court of the executive branch, has issued opinions that say the president can deploy the U.S. military into hostilities anytime it's in an important national interest, so long as it doesn't rise to a war in nature, scope, and duration. That is virtually a limitless test. No court, no lawyer is going to second guess what the president says is in the national interest. Congress may, by majority vote, enact, push through a resolution under the War Powers Resolution saying that he needs to stop in Iran. In order for that to have any legal effect, it has to be tendered to the president for signature. If he vetoes it, I seriously doubt there will be a 2/3 vote in Congress to override. So that's the state of the law right now.
And the court of public opinion, Jonathan Martin, is going to weigh in because primaries get underway in earnest on Tuesday in three critical states. We're looking closely at Texas and North Carolina, where this is going to loom over what voters decide.
And look, the last time that we had a major midterm that was held against the backdrop of America at war, of course, was 2002. Very different, though, because that's the aftermath of the U.S. homeland being attacked on 9/11. This is clearly a war of choice and a war that we're prosecuting offensively overseas. Look, I think the Democratic base was already galvanized against President Trump, and I think this is only going to inflame them further. The question I have on the Republican side is, if this war does become a matter of weeks and months, and Iran becomes messier than Venezuela, does that create fissures? You cited MTG's quote earlier. Does it create fissures among the Republican base, the MAGA base, in which they were already having trouble ginning up turnout with Trump not on the ballot? Boy, does it get harder if you've got 25-30% of the MAGA crowd, the more isolationist Rand Paul crowd that, is unhappy and they're staying home. That could really deepen the challenge that the GOP has this fall.
Carol, what about that? And does the White House have a strategy heading into the midterms to address what could be those fissures?
Well, I think it depends. A lot of this depends just on how it plays out.
Yeah.
I think that we're on day 2 of this. And so we just, from their perspective, ideally, the best case scenario, this reshapes the Middle East. Worst case, or from their perspective, absent that, this effort would degrade Iran's ability to do harm in the region and to the U.S. Now, the problem is there's a lot of risk, a lot of uncertainty. Iran retaliated very quickly and broadly in the region. You have protesters who are trying to storm U.S. embassies in Pakistan and Iraq. You have U.S. law enforcement here who are worried about potential threats that could come. And so all of those things have to continue to play out, and it remains to be seen what exactly is going to happen in the coming days and weeks.
Stephen, that speaks to this divide in the MAGA base, and part of what Marjorie Taylor Greene is arguing, that's why she says President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance campaigned against regime change because of the messiness, because of the uncertainty that Carol lays out.
Yeah, I think what you would hear from the White House is the president said he was always going to put national interest first. This is in our national interest to keep, to defang the world's greatest state sponsor of terror, and that's what he's doing. He doesn't, I think it's hard for us to imagine a president who spent 3 minutes of his hour and 47-minute State of the Union, who within 12 hours of the strikes was talking about off-ramps, sending boots on the ground in Iran. So I think they will say this is going to be a limited engagement. I think the real question is, though, can you do it?
Can you, Secretary Johnson, if you're in the Situation Room?
No.
What's your advice to take one of those off-ramps, if that's the goal?
I would. It seems to me that once a decade or once a generation, we have to relearn the mistakes of history. Saying to the 93 million people in Iran, okay, I've decapitated your leadership, take your country back, sounds an awful lot to me like we will be greeted as liberators. That was the prediction in Iraq. I worry about the public mood now in Iran, now that the so-called Great Satan has taken out their supreme leader, who was supreme leader since since 1989. What will be the public mood there? Or is it going to be chaos? Lindsey said he rejects the Pottery Barn analogy. But where's the opposition? Who's going to put this country back together again? I also worry, and I'm interested to know, should we be on any type of heightened threat alert here in the homeland? The Department
I would say
is
yes.
telling us that is defunded right now.
Well, this is an important point, actually, is the DHS right now. And I think the Republicans in Congress who have very little faith in Kristi Noem, they see an opportunity here that we are now at risk potentially, and you have to get something more serious there at the department and fund the department at the same time.
Yeah, I thought the Pottery Barn reference was fascinating. Guys, great conversation. Thank you so much. Before we go, we here at Meet the Press want to take a moment to acknowledge our dear friend and colleague, Savannah Guthrie, and the entire Guthrie family. It has now been 1 month since their beloved mother, Nancy Guthrie, was abducted from her home in the middle of the night. The Guthrie family is offering a reward of $1 million for information leading to Mrs. Guthrie's recovery. We urge you to please call the tip line. Here it is, 1-800-CALL-FBI, if you have any information to provide to authorities. Again, 1-800-CALL-FBI. We are thinking of and praying for Savannah and her entire family every day. Please, please help us bring Nancy Guthrie home. That is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back next week, because if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Guacamole.
Sorry, folks, we're stuck. Door's over.
It's over?
Here. Hold.
I guess that's it. I thought they was gonna have more for us. Oh well. See y'all later. Like, share, subscribe. Peace.